So the Federal Reserve note might disappear and go extinct, but this won't. And who knows, will there be a currency that will be issued by the treasury that is backed and redeemable in this? In an ideal world, hopefully that will be the case. Monday, July 15th, 2024, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. We're going to look at how even Janet Yellen now is warning about the dollar's hegemony or global dominance. She's woken up, and I think that's very significant because she's always been in denial about things. If you remember well, some years ago when the Fed started tapering its balance sheet, she said it would be like watching paint dry. And then in 2019, of course, we had a huge repo crisis, which led to the Fed having to stop tapering and actually start QE again. And I will also look at a very important symptom of hyperinflation or currency collapse that's been fulfilled in an unfortunate way in the last couple of days in the United States. And I'm going to refer to this book here, When Money Dies, by Adam Ferguson, which I highly recommend. And it's one of the books where I got all these symptoms for currency collapse and hyperinflation. And of course, this is a book about post-World War I Germany and the Weimar Republic. Before we look a little deeper into what Yellen said and the symptoms of hyperinflation and the one symptom that has been fulfilled, in my opinion, just wanted to give a shout out to my precious metals dealer affiliates here in the UK, Gold Investments. All the details of how to get in touch with Oliver and Simon Temple are below in the description, or you can just call them and tell them I sent you to them, and they'll be happy to help you. And in the US, of course, we've got Miles Franklin, and they still have some specials. They've got 2024 1-ounce silver American Eagles, only $5.95 over spot. They've got pre-1965 or junk half dollars. They are, of course, 90% silver, and they're only $2.50 over spot, and 1/10 of an ounce gold American Eagle, $39 over melt. If you want to get in touch with Miles Franklin, email them info@milesfranklin.com, mention Mario or Monaco 64, or you can call them on 1-800-822-8080. So back to the symptom of hyperinflation that I'd been waiting for. And it's not a nice symptom, and you're probably by now thinking, or you probably figured it out, especially those of you who have been watching me for years. And that is political mayhem, and in particular, political assassinations and also assassination attempts. So back in post-World War I Germany, yes, the German state was it was really fragile because Germany, of course, lost World War I. The Kaiser abdicated and the German Empire fell. And they came up with the Weimar Republic, and it was a very fragile political arrangement. And the Treaty of Versailles, of course, was a big problem politically. And yes, you had high inflation as well, not hyperinflation yet. And why was that? Well, because during World War I, the German government, instead of using taxation. They used a lot of borrowing to finance the war. So when the war was over and they had lost, and then you had coupled with that the reparations demand from the Treaty of Versailles, that led to the central bank, the Reichsbank, to print money out of thin air. We're familiar with that, aren't we? To pay the government's bills, and in the beginning it was kind of high inflation like we have now, and we've had, I would say, for the last 50 years since Nixon closed the gold window. And a lot of you might think, what are you talking about? Inflation has only been a problem in the last 2 or 3 years. Well, if you look at inflation as the increase in the supply of a currency and credit, the increase in the debt load, then you understand why we've had a lot of inflation. So to the political assassinations and attempts, because there's one guy here, Matthias Erzberger. So who was he? Well, he became the Vice Chancellor of Germany from June 1919, 21st of June, till the 3rd of October 1919. And then he became also the finance minister on the 21st of June 1919 up until the 12th of March 1920, when he was assassinated. But there was also an assassination attempt on Matthias Erzberger a year earlier in 1919. So that's the first example. The second example is someone called Walter Rathenau. And he was the foreign minister for Germany from February 1922 to the 24th of June 1922, and he was assassinated. If you read this book, you'll see that it wasn't a sure thing that the Weimar Republic would survive. There's talks that Bavaria might secede from the Republic and become its own country or state. And of course, this is when the political chaos began in Germany with that leader that would eventually become chancellor in 1933. He got notoriety in 1923 with a Munich beer hall putsch. Munich, of course, is in Bavaria. So there's a lot of political chaos. And it's not surprising that the Reichsmark, which was the currency of the Weimar Republic and had been the currency as well of the German Empire, collapsed because currencies, national currencies, need the faith and confidence, not just of the public in that country, but of foreign investors all around the world. And with this chaos and mayhem politically and economically in Germany, yes, the Reichsbank and Rudolf Havenstein, who was the head of that central bank, continued to print money. And we've all heard of the Weimar hyperinflation. And it really started picking up from just high inflation and into hyperinflation in the summer of 1922, excuse me. And is it any wonder all this political mayhem was going on? And in the next 12 months, it became hyperinflation, which is very different from the kind of inflation we have right now. It's when people lose complete confidence in the currency. And whenever they get the currency, and it can be digitally as well in your bank account. It doesn't have to be the paper, Federal Reserve notes. The first thing they do is get rid of it for something real, something that has value. And it's one of the reasons I've been noting that I'm not too sure about the stock market if we're going to have a big correction, because the stock market also does very well because companies, they have factories, or they have patents. They have the people that work for them, the expertise, the know-how, the technology, the resources. So what I'm trying to say here, the trigger and the start of the hyperinflation can happen very quickly and overnight. And once it happens, it's a crazy world, and very few people will understand what's going on. And I think the same thing's going to happen. And I would say the Trump assassination attempt is a huge symptom of this. I'm not sure what's going to happen from now on to, until November 5th, or even after November 5th. I've heard that Trump wants to change his speech for Thursday at the Republican National Convention, that he wants to bring America together, but I'm not too sure that's going to work out, because the forces that are trying to get rid of him, I don't think they're over. They're gonna put their arms down and say yes. And I think if Trump gives them too much, forgives them, his supporters are not going to be happy. So I see still a lot of chaos, political, economic. Am I saying, like with Matthias Erzberger, there was an assassination attempt, and then a year later they actually got him? Am I saying that's going to happen to Trump? No. But it's just the climate, political climate, is really bad. And coupled with the Yellen comments, I think it was last week, and I've got a story here from the Global Times. She was speaking to the House Financial Services Committee, and it says Yellen admits sanctions could impact U.S. dollar dominance as concerns mount over dollar hegemony. And I think the could part of that title, or with what she said, could. I think she's being very optimistic. I think the dollar is on its way out, not as a currency itself, because I think the dollar will still be around, but as a major reserve currency that the whole world needs and uses. And the other thing about hyperinflation is that, yes, money does die. And this, I would say, it's more the currency dies. And I would say that the Federal Reserve note is the currency, or the money, and it is the currency and the money of the deep state. So if it dies, it's probably a very good thing. Well, not probably, it is a very good thing. It means the Fed is over. The Fed hasn't been around since the inception of the United States. It's only been since 1913. And you might say, well, what price will gold and silver go to? I don't think it matters. You need to think of gold and silver as money, as a weight of gold and silver. It's very easy to go back to gold and silver, because the Constitution prescribes gold and silver as money. So here's a silver dollar. That's a real dollar. So the Federal Reserve note might disappear and go extinct, but this won't. And who knows, will there be a currency that will be issued by the treasury that is backed and redeemable in this? In an ideal world, hopefully that will be the case. And the same thing goes for gold. I've got here actually one gold dollar from 1853. So you can see where the ratio comes in, 15 or 16 to 1. So I wouldn't be worried too much about the fiat price of gold and silver, because that's going to go to unimaginable levels, in my opinion. And people are going to have to get used to a different kind of exchange rate. So you'll be able, I don't know, with $1, one silver dollar, to do something that you needed. I don't know. The market, the free market, works everything out. So what I'm trying to say here is that it's not the end of the world if the Federal Reserve note goes extinct. But let's quickly see what the Global Times says here about Janet Yellen. When U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen on Tuesday testified before the House Financial Services Committee, she said that one of her concerns is how best to protect the international status of the U.S. dollar, as U.S. financial sanctions have pushed more countries to seek alternative financial transaction methods that do not involve the U.S. dollar. The remarks from Yellen have shed light on growing concerns regarding U.S. dollar hegemony. Experts believe that the weaponization of the U.S. dollar will reduce its dominance. Well, it already is reducing it as the world moves toward local currency settlements and accelerate policies to facilitate de-dollarization. China and other countries are actively promoting local currency settlements and multilateral cooperation, offering more choices and possibilities for the global financial order. In her testimony before the Committee on Financial Services in the House of Representatives, Yellen said the more sanctions the U.S. impose, the more countries will seek financial transaction methods that do not involve the dollar. Well, I don't want to say the word no, no Sherlock, right? We've been warning about this for quite a few years. And now Yellen has woken up to the fact that the Biden administration, and you could argue all the administrations for the last 10, 15 years, have planted the seeds of, well, it's actually the Federal Reserve notes destruction. So let's quickly look at where the markets are this morning. It's 8:30 a.m. London time. We got spot gold at 2,404. It's down about $6. High's been 16. The low's been 01. Silver is down 12 cents at 30.66. High's been 31.02 and the low's been 55. And of course, the Federal Reserve note is the instrument of Wall Street, the bankers, the deep state, and they're going to keep fighting as long as they can to keep the Federal Reserve note alive. And the biggest enemy of the Federal Reserve note is not China or Russia or any other country. It's silver and gold. But I don't think they can keep this thing going forever, because nothing lasts forever, especially not fiat currencies. Historically, they've always ended up going to their intrinsic value of zero. Anyway, what about the stock market? Well, the Dow futures is up 100, the NASDAQ 100 futures up 86, and the S&P 500 is 13. So, another symptom of the melt-up. And the melt-up is just the loss of confidence in the currency. What about the other commodities this morning? Well, WTI crude is down a third at $81. Brent is down a third as well at 84.28. The currencies are pretty steady. They're down slightly versus the dollar. What about the dollar yen? Well, the dollar is back below 158. So for now, it looks like the Bank of Japan has succeeded in bringing the yen back up, or the dollar back down. So let's quickly look at the bond market. The 10-year yield is up 3 basis points this morning. We're at 4.21, the 10-year. And we also had some economic data from China. Their GDP came out at 4.7% in the second quarter, year on year. It was expected 5.1. So Chinese economy not doing so great, but still ticking over, I would say. Year to date, the GDP number was up 5% year on year. So, yes, it has slowed down. There's news about some small banks going under in China, about 40 banks. But I would say, like the United States, China has over 4,000 banks. And the major state-owned banks are where people keep most of their money. But yeah, it's not just the Chinese banks that are in trouble. It's also the banks in the US, in Europe, everywhere, I would say, in Japan. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.